If you like fishing, you better listen, because this is the Bass Junkies podcast. Let's go!
What is up, our fellow Bass Junkies? You guys are tuning in to another episode of the Bass Junkies podcast, where we drop a new episode every Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. Today, Josh and I are going to be talking about our top 5 pieces of advice we would give any fisherman or bass fisherman, whatever you want to call it. But before we get into that, how you doing today, Josh?
I'm good. How are you, Matt?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, dude.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, Josh is at work right now, so.
Yeah, I might have to cut out. But and we're going to try to keep this a little shorter than our last vid.
Yeah. So how's it work? If you get a call, you just up and go?
Yep.
Yeah. So those of you who haven't seen, Josh is a paramedic, so what he does is pretty important. So if you're wondering why it takes so long for the ambulance to get to your house when you call 911, this is why, because they're just chilling out doing YouTube videos in the headquarters.
Oh, I'm ready to roll, man. The ambulance is like 10 from me. So.
Oh, good.
If you guys see me leave here in a flash, you know what's going on. So.
Yeah,
but fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's no worries, man. If you gotta go, you gotta go. So, all right, man. Well, let's get right into it. We want to start with our top 5, so we'll just do it. We'll work our way down from 5 to 1. Do you want to lead us off here with your number 5?
Yeah. I made a list here, and this is five pieces of advice we would give, and it not necessarily to somebody new. It's just to any bass fisherman. So, but a lot of it does relate, I think, to new people who are new to the sport too. But my number 5 would be rods and reels, and more reels than rods. If you're getting into bass fishing, spend the money, don't go broke, but buy the best stuff that you can afford when it comes to rods and reels, because it makes it much more enjoyable and it'll make you much more efficient too. I actually shied away from bait casters when I first got into bass fishing, because I would go to Walmart and I would buy like the Shakespeare $30 bait caster, and I would go home and I just couldn't throw it. And I was like, man, I'm just not good at this. I'm never going to get the hang of this. Well, there is a learning curve when it comes to that. But the other thing was, those bait casters just aren't very good. You know, they don't have very many options as far as the braking systems on them. And they're just hard. So I'm not saying you have to go out and buy a $300 Shimano reel either, but there's a lot of good reels in that $100 area that are super user friendly, and they will last you a long time if you take care of them. I know I throw the Bass Pro Shop Pro Qualifier, which is right at $100. Matt likes the Revo X's, which were $100. I think they're $119 now. But those are super awesome reels, not just for beginners, but for advanced fishermen. But I think it helps with the learning curve of learning a bait caster.
I agree. I think once you get into that $100 range, that's really where you start stepping up to a next level of equipment. $100 reels, $100 rods. That's kind of good for all skill levels, in my opinion. Now, obviously, there is a difference between a $240 reel than there is a $100 reel, but there's a bigger difference between a $100 reel and a $40 reel than there is
absolutely.
a $100 and $240 reel.
Yeah, so. I completely agree with that. And rods too. Like, I'll be honest with you, my favorite rod, other than my St. Croix spinning rods, I like the Abu Garcia Vendettas, which they're $79. Mm-hmm. They might be $89 now, but I like them a lot. I mean, they're great. They're super sensitive. They last forever. They're super strong. So, like, yeah. Spend the money, don't go broke, but get the best stuff you can afford, and it will last. If you can get one quality setup rather than 2 or 3 low dollar junky setups, I would just get the one, and then work your way from there. Get a bait caster, get a spinning reel, and go from there. So that's my number 1 piece of advice, or number 5 at the time.
Yeah. So my number 5 is actually understand the bass, and I think we get wrapped up in rods and reels and lure selections and boats and all those things. And I think understanding a bass, what a bass does, why a bass does what it does during different times of the year, understand the forage that in your lake that the bass feed on, that's important. I mean, it doesn't matter what bait you're throwing. If you're casting into a spot that doesn't have no fish in it, you're not going to catch nothing. Understanding what the bass does and be able to track those fish, in my opinion, is one of the most important things. It's something I spend a lot of time on trying to learn myself still to this day, and it's something that you'll never fully understand, I think. And that can go from someone that's just beginning to the best fisherman in the world. This is something they all study all the time, is try to understand what the bass is doing when it's doing it. So yeah, that's my number 5.
And I agree with that too. And Matt's got a couple good videos on that where you try to explain that a little bit. But yeah, seasonal behavior and seasonal patterns will help you get ahead of the game from the get-go.
Yep, I agree.
You don't want to go out and when the water's 42 degrees and throw top water. I mean, So just knowing kind of what the bass are doing and seasonal patterns, that kind of, I think, keys you in on bait selection too. So
yes, absolutely. Okay, so that was my number 5. Josh, what is your number 4?
Number 4 is, and I'm bad about this, honestly, is fish with as many different anglers as you can. And what I mean by that is try to find advanced anglers and go fishing with them, and go fishing with them on the same bodies of water that you would fish without them. And what you will find is that you will learn a lot, because that advanced angler will fish that lake. He might fish it the same as you, but more than likely he's going to fish it a lot different than what you do. And then you can take a lot away from that, as far as like what techniques he's using, where he's fishing, how he's positioning his boat. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But try to fish with as many different people as you can, and reach out. People are always looking to take people fishing and stuff. So that would be my number 4 piece of advice.
That's a good one. And I agree with that. Yeah. And that's something I don't do enough of myself is, I mean, there's always somebody out there that knows something different. Everybody has their own specialties, their own traits that they're really good at, where, one guy might be good at, cranking, one guy might be good at flipping. I mean, there's something you can learn from anybody. And, me personally, I would love to be able to fish some of these larger tournaments as a co-angler, like the Bassmaster Opens, simply just because of the learning experience from a lot of people, because you actually can learn a lot. Or even as a marshal, just being a marshal in one of these pro tournaments where you get to sit there with the pro all day and watch what they do. I mean, I think it's very beneficial to any fisherman. And I've heard plenty of pro anglers actually say those same things, that, you can learn. They personally help their careers a lot fishing as co-anglers and learning from multiple different anglers from the back of their boat. So,
yeah, I think being a marshal would be pretty cool. I wish we live closer to where a lot of the Bassmaster tournaments are, because the funny thing about being a marshal is you have to pay them to be a marshal. So basically you're paying them to work for them, but you get to go out with a pro, you get to spend the day. And that would be cool. I mean, and I think we would really, I've watched some videos, because they will let marshals like tape if the angler's all right with that. And you would just learn so much. And I think you'd be blown away at how efficient and how well these guys can cast and all that. I mean,
oh yeah, absolutely.
It'd be awesome.
So my number 4 is actually something a little bit different. It's don't be underprepared on the water. What I mean by that is, and this is probably more geared towards boaters, is be over prepared and be prepared for any situation to happen at any time. Make sure you have all the safety stuff on your boat. Make sure you have jumper cables, tools. When you're traveling, make sure you have a jack in your vehicle in case you got to change a tire. Make sure you have all the tools to take the tire off. That is something that I feel like is very important. It might be a little bit different, is just be prepared for the worst situation possible. Have tow ropes, have a way to call somebody in an emergency situation, especially if we're fishing on the Great Lakes and stuff like that. So never be underprepared, and be over prepared, I guess should be what I should have said. Just be over prepared is my number 4.
Yeah, that's a good one. Can I expand on that a little bit too?
Yeah, go ahead.
I also think with that, being prepared also is making sure you have like something to hydrate yourself on the water. You don't want to become dehydrated. Most of the time when we're fishing, it's either one extreme to the other, and that brings me into the other thing. Like, be careful on the water. Make sure, what I do when I go out and it's really cold out, a lot of times I'll bring an extra change of clothes and just throw it in the boat, because if I ever fall in that water and I get myself out, I'm going to have to get all that wet clothes, and you need to get out of it now. And then also just bring gloves, hats, extra sweatshirts, rain gear. Rain gear is highly important. I wear fishing bibs a lot right up until it gets warm. And it's like anything. If you can be comfortable out there, you're going to be better on the water and you can stay longer. So I think a lot of that has to do with it.
Yeah, and another thing, it's real important too that people realize if you would fall into the water, especially if it's colder water, and if you don't have a ladder or something on your boat, and especially like someone like bigger guy like myself, or someone might be older, those clothes get waterlogged. So now you're adding all kinds of weight on top of you, and you're trying to pull yourself back up in the boat. It could be a really bad situation. So
yeah, that's something I highly recommend people to do is when it's warm out, say summer, and you're out there, jump in the water and see if you can get back in your boat. And we're talking about warm weather conditions. It's a lot harder than you think.
Yeah.
And especially if you don't have a boarding ladder, and I don't have one on the tracker. Another thing you can do too, guys, is if you can get to the back of your outboard, you can stand on the outboard and just hit your tilt button and lift yourself up into the boat. And that'll help you out too.
Yep, that's a good point. That's what I was going to say. Just stand on the whatever they call it, and lift yourself up. So okay, so that was Josh's number. That was my number 4. Now we're going to get to Josh's number 3.
My number 3 is, so when you're learning new techniques, and this is hard to do, but take just that lure to the lake. So go to a lake where you know the fish are biting or you have a good chance of catching them. And say you want to learn how to fish a jerkbait. Take just a jerkbait to the lake. Jerkbait rod, jerkbait, don't take anything else. And that forces you in 2, 3, 4 hours to learn how to fish that. And hopefully you'll catch some fish, because ultimately the easiest way to gain confidence is to catch fish. But, and I'm guilty of this, but I've been fishing a long time, so I'm pretty confident in all my techniques. But when you go to the lake, if you just take that one, you're forced to fish that. You're not going to put that down and grab the jig that you always catch fish on. You know what I mean? If you want to learn how to fish different techniques, if you're going out just to catch fish and have fun, then take whatever you want. But that's a good way of doing it, is just leave some stuff at home, take the stuff you want to learn, and it forces you to throw that stuff. And then you might catch some fish, and then you become very confident in that lure, or that lure or that technique. So that would be my number 3.
That's a good one. My number 3 is an unwritten rule, and that is do not climb on top of other anglers. Do not fish on top of other anglers. And that could be whether you're in a boat or if you're on a bank. If someone is there, give them space. Obviously, most of the water is public. It is absolutely not against the law for you to pull right up on somebody and fish. But it's just one of those things that you just don't do. And it'll save you a lot of headaches, because you just never know who you can pull up on and what kind of mood they're in. I've had it happen to me. Last year, Ryan and I weren't fishing a tournament, and we were out there catching them on this point, and multiple boats saw us because we were actually fairly close to the takeoff point, and multiple boats came and pulled right up on us. And I was upset about it. I didn't say nothing because it's just not worth the drama and the time. And I wasn't fishing for money, so it wasn't the end of the world. But, and on the reverse side of that, we fished another tournament last year, and a lot of these same boats went back into the area that I figured they were, and I refused to go back there. Like, I'm not going to just climb in line with these guys. I'm just not wired that way. And, thankfully my dad taught me the right way early on in my life, that you just don't do that. But there are people, and you'll see it on some of these YouTube channels, where they'll climb on top of each other. And I just personally don't think it's right. And you just never know who you come across. You never know when someone's carrying a firearm, and you just never know what they're going through or anything. So I would just say, give people their space.
That's a good one. Yeah. Just have some boat etiquette, treat people how you'd want to be treated. Matt, what do you think say I'm fishing down a bank, what do you think the appropriate space is if you wanted to pull in front of me and fish down that bank?
See, I was actually thinking about this. So if it's a long, straight piece of shoreline with no bends or breaks in it, that was going to be my question to you too, is do you think it's okay to work back towards them? If they're coming down this way, do you jump in front and work back towards them, or do you stay in front of them the whole time? Typically if it's a shoreline where it has a break in it somewhere, so say it's a pocket or something, and I can get on the other side of the break, so we're not actually in the same direct line, I prefer to do that. But if I was actually pulling in front of somebody, I'd give them at least a couple hundred yards. I'd be up for a ways. And you deal with that at Lake Erie on that, shoreline I'm talking about, East Harbor.
I was just going to bring that up. I was actually just going to say that
because that's what people do in there, and that's where there's a lot of fish on that damn shoreline. So everybody does that there.
Yeah, that one's a little different in my opinion. Like I will cut people off to a point because everybody's fishing it. It's a stretch that literally probably goes what?
Yeah.
Half a mile one way, half a mile the other way. And it's a community hole for sure. There's
8 boats on it. It's a little different than there's just one boat on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just got to take
and
that.
I won't cut right in front of somebody, but if you're fishing down, I'll go up maybe 100, 200 yards and start fishing down there. And then I'll circle back around. I mean, heck, me and this guy one time, we were playing merry-go-round on that dang thing, you know, and there's so many fish there. And like I said, that's kind of a different stretch. But there are other spots where I think if you're going to fish the same stretch, either pull in behind them and fish behind them, or if you're going to pull in front ways, like get 300-400 yards at least, you know, in front.
I agree. And, you know, and if someone's like in a pocket by themselves, and that's a pocket that you found fishing, because it's very possible people find fish in the same areas. It happens. Someone just beats you there to it. Yeah. If you're in a tournament, I guess, you know, talk to them when they come and say, hey, man, would you mind if I fish in here with you? You know, and if they don't want to let you, then that's fine. But at least a lot of times I think if you just reach out to them and are respectful about it, I know if someone did that to me, I'd be like, yeah, man, come on in. It's not a big deal. That's how I would do it personally if someone asked me. So, yeah,
I think a big thing is communication, you know, just if you're going to, you know, and then just when you're going by somebody, ask them how their day's going. Hey, what you catching them? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, you don't mind? I'm going to fish up here a little bit. And they're like, yeah, go ahead. You know what I mean? Most of the time, people are cool. I love talking to other anglers on the water. So
yeah, and a rule of thumb I have too is if I can hit you with a crankbait, if I can cast in your boat, you're too close, dude.
You're way too close.
Get off me. And if
you deal with that more in these small, like we talk a lot about Lake Erie. Lake Erie's so big. You pull in front of me, I'll just pull the motor up and go somewhere else. I mean, I'll go to the next stretch. But some of these smaller lakes around here, yes, you do deal with that quite often, you know.
Yeah, and just be, and like Josh said, just etiquette. You know, if you're fishing by someone, don't come hauling ass in and shut your motor down. You know, 20 feet from them and throwing wake in and throwing their boat into the bank if they're fishing on a shoreline.
Yeah,
you know, idle out away from them a ways before you take off or whatever. Just little things like that. I think it's important. So, all right, so that was my number 3. Josh, you want to give us your number 2?
Yeah, and it's more tackle talk, but it's just keep it simple. And I've been talking about this in some of my videos. I'm doing a tackle series on my channel where I'm showing you guys what's in my tackle boxes. And the big thing is I've been hardcore bass fishing for 20 years now. And I've bought so much tackle over the years. And then I look back sometimes and I'm like, why did I buy that? That's stupid. And I've gotten to the point now where I kind of know what I like and I kind of use that. And there is that learning curve to get to that point. You have to try stuff. But my biggest thing is just keep it simple. Do you really need 600 square bills by 600 different brands? No, find something you like and kind of just expand off of that. You know, get some confidence in it, become efficient with it. Same thing with top waters. You don't need 8 zillion different brands of top waters. If you like a spook, then buy that spook and expand on it. Because what I feel like, and at least for me, I get spun out a lot of times if I'm not catching fish and I got all these different rods and lures on the boat, on the deck of the boat. The more options I have at that point, it kind of spins me out rather than me knowing that I can catch them with the Zoom trick worm and I just need to bear down and fish it, you know? Mm-hmm. So my biggest thing is keep it simple when it comes to fishing tackle. Like we all have a ton of tackle. I got 14 boxes and some people will be like, well, I didn't keeping it simple, but it's keeping it simple for me. And the fact that I got certain brands of Senkos I like, I got certain brands of worms I like, and then I don't really expand outside of that very much. And for me, that it makes it simple, makes it cost efficient, and it doesn't spin me out on the water.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something I'm trying to do this year as well. Is just simplify the process, man. I mean, you know, I get in the same position where I just get overwhelmed sometimes with tackle. I mean, there's so much of it looks so good, and there's so many options, and then it almost becomes. It's almost like when you go to a restaurant, there's just too big of a menu. There's just too many items to pick from. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes I want 5 items and let's only pick. You know, so
do I want the sirloin or do I want the ribeye? You know?
Yeah, exactly. So that I'm in the same boat. Keep it simple. I think will go a long way in helping you, and it's something I'm really trying to work on this year myself. So my number 2 is always have fun fishing and don't make it a job. And what I mean by that is just remember why you're out there to begin with. Fishing is supposed to be fun. And try not to get too frustrated. And I catch myself getting frustrated quite sometimes, you know, and sometimes when I'm watching some of my YouTube videos back, you know, because I got my GoPro set up all day, I'll see myself, you know, whether I'm getting pissed off at a trolling motor or just something stupid. And I know if I was like in Ryan's position, I'd be like, man, would you just shut up already? You know what I mean? Like, because I'll be up there just throwing F bombs or whatever left and right because I'm frustrated. Or if we're not catching fish, I'm getting frustrated. And at the end of the day, it's just fishing. We're not professionals, and and that's something I got to work on too. Is just try to make the experience more enjoyable. The reason I'm out here to begin with is because I just truly love to do it. I love being outdoors, you know, and I don't. And I think YouTube is kind of throwing some of the stress into that. You know, I don't think it ever was like that for me. But when you're trying to create content and, you know, you're trying to post, you know, on a regular basis on these YouTube channels, and you're not catching fish, it can be stressful. And then it starts to put pressure on yourself that you really don't need. And I think that has honestly added some pressure to me, is just because I feel like I have to catch a fish, or I have to catch multiple fish, or I have to do something special in order for the channel. And that's put pressure on me as well. So I think that's added to it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, that we're not professional fishermen. We didn't choose to be professional fishermen. I mean, I'm sitting at work right now because I'm a paramedic. Matt's going to get up tomorrow and go to work because he's an electrician. So this is ultimately, it's a getaway for me from my job, honestly. And sometimes I do get worked up, but I try to make the most of it and remind myself, this is fun. This is what you chose. Like, this is what you want to do on your days off. And the other thing is, the YouTube stuff does bring a whole new challenge as far as stress, because I feel that too. My whole goal is when I go out fishing, I want to catch enough fish so I can put together a quality video.
Exactly.
And it's funny because a lot of times, like, especially when I go up to Lake Erie, where I know I'm going to catch multiple fish, usually after about that third, fourth, fifth fish, I kind of relax a little more because I'm like, well, at least I got enough fish where I can put together a video. You know?
Exactly.
So,
and I've had that experience, man. Yeah, it is. You get out there and you catch one bass. It's like, what kind of video am I going to make out of one bass catch? You know what I mean? A 15-second video. So you just don't post nothing. Yeah.
Then I'm like, I better get some more B-roll because there's only going to be one fish catch on this video.
And it's hard. It's hard in Ohio to find lakes where you can catch 10 bass in a day, you know. And also managing all the cameras and GoPros and everything else. Like it does bring it brings a whole nother difficulty level into it. But when it all comes together, it makes it that much funner. It's fun. Yeah. I wouldn't change it for anything. I love doing it. I absolutely love doing it, but it does put a little bit added pressure on you for sure. So that was my number 2, guys. Josh, you want to give us your most important piece of advice that you would give a fisherman?
Well, it's kind of funny. We're talking about YouTube. My number 1 piece of advice is to watch YouTube videos, especially Bred for Bass and Ohio Bass Guru.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, really though, guys. So growing up in the 90s, I didn't have internet. So the way I learned about bass fishing is, I remember I would go to like the drugstore or Walmart or Kmart with my mom, and she would go shopping, and I'd be like, well, come get me from the magazine section. Because I don't know if you guys, dude, magazine sections used to be huge, and there would be like 10 dudes all standing there just reading magazines. And I would go to the magazine section, and I would pick up bass fishing magazines, like in Fisherman and stuff, and I would just start like trying to read them. And then maybe my mom might buy me one, but that was how we got info back then. Well, today there's so much info at the touch of your finger. We all have iPhones. We're all glued to our iPads. So watch YouTube videos. It makes the learning curve so much smaller than it used to be. There is so much good content out there. And I mean, like, I'm going to plug me and Matt's channel, but like, there's so much good stuff out there. Just
there's great content out there.
And I like watching a lot of the videos that are entertaining too, but there's a lot, like I said, there's just good videos where guys are all about teaching, you know? So that would be my number 1 piece of advice is, when you're not on the water, you can sit in lazy boy. You want to learn how to, throw a spinner bait, type it in on YouTube, and there's 8 zillion videos, and there's a lot of guys who give out really, really good information. So
yeah, maybe we'll do a video about our top 5 favorite YouTube fishing channels to watch or something.
Yeah. That'd be awesome too. That would be.
So my number 1 thing is, guys, and I know a lot of you guys heard me talk about it, so you can probably guess it, and it's confidence. And I just think, being confident when you're fishing is crucial. And this is another one of those things that I work on. Daily, every time I'm on the water. I mean, every time you make a cast, you have to believe that there's a fish there. You have to believe every time you cast at some lay down tree that there's a fish there. If you ever start to think that there's no fish in this lake, there's no fish there, you're not going to be successful. You know, the confidence bait thing, there's a reason it's a confidence bait. It's because you caught fish on it and you believe in it, but don't think that bait is the only bait in the whole entire world that works. There's a million baits that catch bass. It's just because you're confident in it. And you guys can see that video. I have a whole video on confidence. It's my number one tip in bass fishing. But that, to me, confidence is just everything in my eyes when it comes to bass fishing. So that's my number one.
Yep. That's great advice, because like we said before, if you're not confident in what you're throwing or where you're fishing, then you're probably not going to catch anything.
No, if you show up to the dock, not even if you show up to the dock, you look at the weather forecast. If you're going to go fishing, you look at the weather forecast, like, oh man. And actually, I should have put this on the list, and I didn't think about it, is don't be a fair weather fisherman, because some of the best fishing you can have is in screwed up conditions. If you can get out there, and I'm not saying go out there and fish in a lightning storm.
Yeah.
Wind, rain, clouds, bass, love it. That's some of the best days you'll ever have. Don't be someone that fishes in fair weather. But yeah, I mean, if you automatically look at the weather like, oh, they ain't gonna bite today, weather sucks, cold front, ain't gonna bite, you ain't gonna catch nothing, dude. You're already lost before you even got out there. So
yep.
I just believe trying to stay upbeat, trying to stay confident, and believe in what you're doing at all times is going to set you up for the most success. So is there anything else you got, Josh? That was my top 5. Your top 5?
No, that was my top 5. I mean, I'm sure we could expand on this list for hours. But that was the top 5 I came up with, and I think it was a good top 10, actually, between mine and yours, so hopefully you guys can take some advice away from this, and also comment below and let us know what some of your advice you would give to other fishermen are.
Absolutely. Please leave some feedback, guys. We really appreciate it. Make sure you head over to Josh's channel, Ohio Bass Guru. Leave him subscribe to his channel if you're not already. Leave him some comments, feedback. It's a good channel. Same thing here at Bread for Bass. So next week's video, guys, we're going to get into our top 5 spring baits, right, Josh? Is what we talked about. We're going to do.
Yeah, we'll do our top 5, and it's funny because me and Matt was texting, and he's like, I don't know if I have a top 5.
I don't know if I do have a top 5. I have top 3, baby.
I'm having a hard time narrowing it down to 5. So, and I'm also talking about keeping it simple, but I was thinking about that actually a little bit ago. I'm like, man, I got to figure out this, but yeah.
My number 5 is probably gonna be something I've never caught a fish on this, but I heard. This is...
Hey, you use what you got confidence in, Yeah. Also, guys, as we're taping this right now, yesterday, Ohio weather it will not let go. The winter will not let go.
Dude, so depressing.
I woke up yesterday with ice all over my driveway, like 3 inches of snow. It was blowing. It was drifting. It was awful.
Dude, that wind was so bad. My God, dude. Like, I had to run down to the gas station, and I knew there was snow. I saw obviously all the snow out there, but when I opened that garage door up, man, that wind came across them fields. Oh my God, dude. I just wanted to curl into a ball. It was not what I was expecting. I didn't know we were gonna have all that ice, man. Dude, my whole driveway was a sheet of ice. It was just it sucks. But hopefully it's done for the season.
Well, speaking of that, I seen Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday 60s. I think 60s, 70s, and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So my plan is I am going to get out fishing hopefully Wednesday and Friday, or Thursday and Friday. I'll probably try to hit a pond up on Thursday, and then Friday I might get the boat out for the first time. If anything, I might just get it out just to kind of do what you did, Matt. Like get out, make sure everything works all right. There's no leaks, and maybe I catch some fish. So maybe next time we do one of these, maybe we'll have some fishing talk to talk about.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely not gonna be able to get out there in a week. I got to save my vacation time up for St. Clair and Lake Erie and all that stuff. So I got to pretty much. I think I'm gonna take off. And you and I need to talk about that. I think I'm going to take off pretty much like that last week of April all the way up to middle of first week of May, because my dad and I are actually going to Lake Erie in that time frame too. So that's going to be kind of like my window to really pound fishing between St. Clair, Lake Erie, and then I might and honestly I'm going to have a little time in there, I think, where I might even try to run to Cumberland or at least run up to East Harbor or something, because Dad and I are actually going to go to the Pennsylvania-Ohio line this year. First time we've ever fished Erie at that part of the lake, so we're gonna try something different this year.
Heck yeah! And me and Matt we're trying to get to St. Clair, but unfortunately with St. Clair, especially in our smaller boats, you can't just plan a trip. A lot of it's so weather dependent.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I had 2 different trips to St. Clair get canceled because of weather. So it's hard to put a definite date like I'm going to St. Clair, because I'll be honest with you, you can go up to Lake St. Clair, and if the weather's bad, you can jump back into like a marina or like a harbor like you do at Lake Erie. But if I'm going to do that, I'll just go to Lake Erie, I'm going to Lake St. Clair to catch smallmouth. I'm not going up there to catch largemouth, but because you have to buy Ohio, or you have to buy a Michigan fishing license. You also have to pay to park up there, and it's a long drive. So me and Matt's going to try to get up there for sure. We're just playing by ear, and April, May is the best time. So
that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping in that time I take off there, we'll just have a good day that comes up and we can just go. That's what I'm hoping. So, all right, guys, that's all we have for this one. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Make sure you leave us some feedback. Like I said, hit that like button here if you would. Go to Josh's channel, Ohio Bass Guru. Subscribe to his channel, guys. And tune in next Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time, which I know a lot of you guys are probably sleeping, but you might be able to listen to it on your drive to work, whatever you want to do. And we're going to talk about our top 5 spring baits. So, everybody have a good one. Stay safe out there, guys.
See ya.
Peace.